welcome everyone to our webinar this evening Perth time here in Australia. We've had an incredible turnout, so thank you so much for taking the time out to listen a little bit about EIT. We've got an awesome agenda today, so we're going to try and get through a lot of information, and please feel free to use the chat box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Unfortunately, you will not be able to use your microphone, but you can type as many questions as you want, and I will be putting my email address at the end, so you can contact me directly after the session. All right. Just move to... So our first introduction today is our Dean of EIT, Dr. Steve Mackay. He is the founder of EIT, and he has been in the engineering world for many, many years. Steve, I don't know if you want to say hello before we get started.
Hi everyone, Steve Mackay here, and I'm glad to be here. I'm privileged to have so many people tuning in. It's just marvellous to see that, and I've been involved with the Engineering Institute of Technology for 20 years, and we are very excited with the students we've got all over the world. So we've got about 2,000, and the focus that we have on engineering education is what I've always dreamed of, which is tying the job world, the industry world, to the theory, and that to me is what education is all about. So industry connections, very exciting, and also doing it on a global basis, and even better, doing it online and in the classroom. So we have both, because everything today, of course, as you know, is virtual. So we're in a really, really exciting place at the moment. And as our mentor, Nelson Mandela, said, education is the most powerful world which we can use. And there's no doubt that the last few months have illustrated that in great depth. So thank you very much, Caroline and the team. And thank you so much for inviting me along today to present.
All right, thank you, Steve. I'm just going to make Mildred a presenter. James, could you just make sure that Mildred is in the presenter side, and I'll move on to the next slide. We've got Edwina Ross here today as well. She's EIT's Academic Public Affairs Manager. She'll be interviewing our special guest today, Miss Mildred Nanona, who is EIT Student Ambassador. So we'll be focusing this webinar on the wonderful Miss Mildred Nanona. All right. So we've got the wonderful Mildred here today, and we're very, very lucky to have her presenting, and it's, I believe, around lunchtime her side. She is EIT's Master of Engineering Industrial Automation graduate. She's currently working at Eskom, Uganda. She's a control and instrumentation engineer, and she's been featured in Sunday Vision's top 40 under 40 for engineering, which is absolutely incredible, and an advocate for people with hearing impairment. I'm not sure if Mildred's online. If you would like to just say hi from your side. Mildred, did you want to just quickly test your microphone? All right, I'll move on, and hopefully we can sort that out. All right, so for today's webinar, we're going to give you a brief overview of EIT. I'm going to then hand you over to the Dean of EIT, who's going to talk a little bit about the careers of the future with a focus on industrial automation engineering. We're going to then pass over to Edwina, who's going to be interviewing Mildred on her experience with EIT. We're going to briefly talk about EIT scholarships, and then we'll have question and answer. Please feel free to use the chat box with any questions that you have throughout the session. If we can't get to every question, we will be sending a document out tomorrow with answering all of the questions. All right, brilliant. So over to Steve.
Thank you very much, Caroline, and hopefully Mildred can join us. I must tell you now, friends and students and colleagues, that the internet is brilliant. You can be connected from all over the world, but inevitably there's always little challenges, as you know, when you're trying to make a call urgently. There's always problems. So we may have students dropping in and out because they're all over the world, and with 500 people listening in, it is quite a stress on the server, which is somewhere in the States, I think. So we're happily in Western Australia, just circling it on the map there. And obviously we're broadcasting out all over the world. Forgive me, I love scribbling on the board, and we've got people from all over the place listening in. So really the whole basis of our activities is we've got 300 instructors. I don't really like the word lecturers, I like the word instructors. People that have got industry experience. That is basically what drives us, and nothing infuriates me more is someone who's got the theory but they don't actually have the industry connections. And to me, industry connections, experience, knowledge, know-how is what all makes it work. Over the last 3 years, we've developed about 400 short courses, and as we speak, despite all the hassles with the current circumstances, we run courses for Rolls-Royce in Derbyshire, BP in London, and then obviously clients in South Africa, Australia, America. We even got NASA as one of our clients. So you know, we try and put courses together, short courses which are targeting people working in industry, and we use that to drive our degrees and our diploma programs. So we've got students from 146 countries, and at any one time we've probably got about 2,000 students on our courses. The number 0.4 is really important. We're trying to make the courses industry relevant. So we don't want courses which, you know, that are really interesting and enjoyable but don't have any industry relevance. They've got to really work for our students to get them jobs or to improve their current jobs. And then we've got a lot of published articles and books for the last 30 years. We've actually got books, I know you'll be horrified, books in Russian, Turkish, French, and obviously English as well. So, and American and English. So we have a huge output going on with production of textbooks and translated into different languages. And we've got people such as Elsa here, who's the biggest one of the biggest publishers in the world, and they have got a license to publish some of our books as well, which you'll see if you do a search on Amazon. So we also run engineering conferences. Obviously, the last 3 months has been a little bit tricky because, of course, we can't physically front up because we were running conferences in Birmingham in the UK and then Australia, and unfortunately they've had to take a bit of a back burner, but we will be running them again in probably September, October going on. So undeterred, we run them all over the world, and obviously our students have the right to attend the conferences for free if they're on any of our programs. And then the other thing we try and do is we try and form global partnerships with institutes around the world, such as IEEE, which is the biggest society, and then the ISA, who are based in Raleigh. We often pop across to Raleigh, North Carolina, and got a good relationship with them as well. So it's really important to try and keep global partnerships going. But above all, we've got 3 engineering accords, which we'll talk about later, I believe. The Dublin Agreement, which is recognizing our advanced diplomas for technicians. The Sydney Accord, which recognizes the 3-year bachelor degrees. And then the master degrees which are recognized under the Washington Accord. So these are international agreements which are really, really important to give you that warm, fuzzy feeling that you're recognized on a global basis. That is really, really important. Accreditation is an ongoing issue, and we do understand that it's important. So we put a huge amount of effort on a daily basis into that. Okay, so I think, Caroline, I'll pass it back to you to continue, but really good talking to everyone. I hope you can see all my scribbles on the screen. I just love, doing things and writing things, and we're also going to be producing, from the next 2 weeks, we're going to be launching a series of free sort of sessions, half-hour sessions on our different courses on a Wednesday afternoon. Hopefully I'll be seeing you there soon. We've got a whole series that we're going to be running every 2 weeks. Okay, over to you, Caroline.
Thanks, Steve. Just something, are you able to just switch your webcam off? Unfortunately, Mildred's having just a few issues on her side, so I'll keep running through, and then hopefully Mildred will be able to jump in once we put the slides over to her. So just before I move on to the future of automation, we're just going to quickly run over just a little overview of the programs EIT offers. So we offer obviously professional certificate courses. There's about 32 that are currently scheduled for this year. And then we've got our array of vocational education and training programs, which are diplomas, advanced diplomas and graduate certificates. And then we've got many higher education programs, so bachelor, master degrees, and we've just about to start running a PhD program, which we're all very excited about. Our higher education programs run online as well as on campus. So we're very excited that we've got a campus in Melbourne and Perth. Over to you, Steve. We'll just have to keep the time to no longer than 5 minutes on these 2 slides. Thanks.
Thanks, Caroline. I see there's a whole series of questions in the chat box. We'll get to the doctorate later in the discussion. We just launched a doctorate of engineering, and it's caused a huge stir because it's done in such a flexible way, although it is going to be demanding, unfortunately. Can I use the camera, Caroline, or not?
Yeah, go for it, and we'll just get you to switch it off as soon as we move over to Edwina and Mildred.
Okay, thanks very much, guys. I always just like to show everyone who I am. I'm not some Martian or a robot. I'm actually a human being. So really, the thing that's really been driving us for the last 20 years, and I know you'll find it a bit surprising that it's only now that we talk about it, but for the last 25 years, we are absolutely excited by the various technologies which have now been shown up. For example, Internet of Things, the fact that everything's been connected. We've been running courses in this area for 30 years now. So there's no doubt that automation is really transforming the markets, which is a big challenge to people in traditional areas. You've got to be connected. And believe me, even myself, I spend an hour at least every day, early in the morning, sharpening my skills, knowledge in the different areas because it is fast changing. And every day that I study, I realize how little I know. So it's a constant thing. But automation is a great transforming influence. It's going to be terribly destructive for a lot of jobs. It's going to create huge opportunities for us in the engineering area. And you only need to think about things such as data mining. There's a huge flood of data out there, and we need to analyze it. And I'm talking about programs such as Python, which is freely available. And if you're not using it yet, as an engineer, you need to get into it. It's very important. It's free. And this is enabling you to analyze huge volumes of data. So these technologies are rapidly appearing, and you're going to find that the estimate is that in the next 10 years, probably about 70 to 80% new of the jobs will be new jobs, and the existing jobs, traditional electrical engineers and technicians will be transformed. They won't be the same as they are today. So this process is going on all the time. So if I can just go on to the next slide. Really, the first point is there's a worldwide demand. And I know with the current circumstances, everyone thinks, hey, got a big problem with employment because of the virus. But there's definitely a huge shift going on. And paradoxically enough, the virus and the stay at home and all the virtualization that's going on is actually accelerating this change. So things won't be, we won't be going back to what we were 4 months ago. We're going into a different world, as you've probably heard a million times. So the automated world is going to change dramatically, and that means we need to make sure that everyone is skilled up to handle automated approaches to doing things. And as I said, the virus has actually accelerated the process. So there was a bit of activity, but now it's actually serious activity. And artificial intelligence, there's a lot spoken about it, and it's all high-tech stuff, but there's a lot of basic stuff going on with machine learning, which is a subset of artificial intelligence. And it's impacting on everything, including what we do, and even trivial jobs, sorting rocks on a conveyor belt, machine learning is there. So it's a huge thing. So our belief is that there is going to be a continual skill shortage in this area, in the automation area, be able to analyze, automate processes. That is going to only accelerate. And of course, the key markets, and I don't have much time here, but the key markets are the traditional ones, mining. And only today, a very big mining company CEO who was finishing off his gig, is in his late 60s. He said, look, the biggest challenge we have in mining is we're not automating enough. We need to automate even more. And you only need to look at some of the deep level processes going on in the South African diamond mines to see that a lot of the mines are only being able to operate because they are more automated than they were before, because some of the conditions are so extreme and so demanding that you can't just have a human drilling into the rock. And then you just need to look around at the logistics industry, transportation, vehicles, everything is being automated, and we're trying to connect things together. Energy, oil and gas, these are all being transformed with automation. So it is everywhere. And we've put a few links here why we say this. But as I said, you only need to look around to see the massive transformation going on. So unfortunately, if you're unskilled, you're going to have huge challenges. So we have to be skilled, and we have to keep reskilling ourselves all the time. And that doesn't mean that you need to go on a traditional course either. You just need to be able to access information from the internet and make sure that you can apply the stuff that's coming out. So the universities, which were the repository of all the knowledge in the libraries, that has all been made available on a democratic basis to anyone now at very low cost. So things like IP, intellectual property, that's becoming less and less valuable today because people can easily access information. So please have a look at these links, and please, if you have any questions, please shout. But I know Caroline is going to chase me on. And we will come back to the doctorate, and there's a lot of questions on the side we will answer as we go through. We just got a very short time, unfortunately. So Caroline, can I pass the baton back to you?
Thanks, Steve. That was very informative. I'm even learning a lot. Can you just switch your video off, and we're just going to test Mildred's microphone one more time. Mildred, are you able to just test your microphone from your side?
Yes, Carol, can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. Thank you so much, Mildred. We're just going to make sure that all of our videos are off so that the internet connection will be smooth. So I will hand over to Edwina now and very excited to hear you answer these questions, Mildred. Thanks.
It's a pleasure.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me clearly. This is Edwina, and it's so lovely that I have Mildred here to chat to today, and so lovely that you're all attending this evening, my time. Mildred, we're going to start with that question at the top of that slide. Such a gorgeous picture of you looking intently at your screen. Why did you choose EIT as your college?
First, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to share my experience with the rest of the globe. So how I found EIT, why I chose EIT, basically came from the urge I had to do automation. And I wanted a course that would allow me to continue working, but at the same time get qualifications that are not only internationally recognized, but can also help me advance my career. So that's why I basically chose EIT, because from the internet searches, only EIT could give me the whole package plus much more.
Mm.
So then when I went through the content of...
Sorry, Mildred, you must excuse me.
May I continue?
You must continue to talk. I won't interrupt you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So when I went through the delivery structure of EIT, it was very appetizing and exciting because everything was totally online, and the support that came through was very, very great. I really apprehend and comprehend the team that helped me with my course. So the lecturers were very, very experienced. They are field people, ladies and gentlemen, who actually know what's in the field. And the course spoke to what I was doing. It was very practical, it was advanced, and it was up to date. So I chose EIT, and I would choose it over again. Over to you, Edwina.
Mildred, those are lovely comments. Thank you so much. And we do work hard to keep our content up to date. And as you say, select instructors from all over the world who have industry experience. It's lovely to hear it from you. Can we go to the next slide, Caroline? All right, we don't need to labor this at this point, Mildred. I think for everybody watching on, this is also information for you, and Mildred's here to answer just a few questions around these slides. But as Caroline said, this recording and these slides will come out to you tomorrow. So I just have a couple of questions on this slide, Mildred. Did you, by any chance, get to speak to one of our lovely course advisors when you originally approached our college?
Yes, I did. By then, I worked with a gentleman called Rick Harrison. It was the fastest process I've ever gone through. Our engagement started on 15th October. And by 9th November, I already had my process clear. I had my appointment later, and I was good to go. So, yes, we did.
Oh, that's good to hear. And we do have course advisors based around the world so that we can accommodate various time zones. And I must say, more and more we're finding that we're receiving compliments for their attention to students. So that is lovely. Thank you for that, Mildred. Can we go to the next slide, Caroline? Okay, so one of the things we've decided was necessary for students studying remotely and far from a campus was the support of a learning support officer. Mildred, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with your learning? And I believe you might have had a couple through your studies.
Yes, I did. I refer to them as the guardians. So I went through the hands of 3 people, Georgina Story, Rick Harrison, Jacinta Bushby, and then Brie McDonald, finally with Natalie Holland. So I was scared of this remote interaction for a master's because it's a practical course. but the course advisors made it seem so easy. I usually had issues with internet, but we had options of us listening to the recording after the session. You make a summary and then submit, then you'll be considered present. And anytime I would reach out, I would get immediate response. So it's a very brilliant thing to have the course advisors, or not actually the lecturers. They really help you. So I, for one, I really got a lot of support from payments. Sometimes my payments would be delayed and they would be there to stand for me. Sometimes the research would get a little bit tricky and I would still engage them much as I had a supervisor and they would come in to help. And on a lighter note, I wasn't sure whether I would go for graduation or not. But I talked to the course advisor and was like, why not? You worked so hard. And they helped me arrange the entire process for me to go for my graduation.
Thank you so much, Mildred. And I think I just need to clarify something for all of you. Because we have a dual sector college, so we teach vocational programs and higher educational programs. So when you are studying an advanced diploma, for example, you would have the same learning support officer throughout your studies. But for the higher education, you have different learning support officers for each unit. That's why Mildred had that experience. But however they're structured, they're there to be your biggest fan and to assist you achieve that qualification at the end of the day. Obviously, you have to do the hard work, but they are there to encourage you and to assist you when there's a hiccup or an obstacle. I think we can go to the next one. Thanks, Caroline. Okay, I think you've touched on this a little bit, Mildred. Would you like to talk a little more about how you found it and whether you did indeed feel lonely at times, or whether it suited you and the time in your life and obviously where you were in the world?
The mode of delivery was perfect for me. I work at a hydropower station. I work literally 24/7 because I'm an engineer. So what would happen, I would log in for an online class, and then just after the class I have to go to the plant and fix it. Or midway fixing the plant, I could be able to run to class, do my course, and then finish it. So, and then what also helped me prepare ahead because was the fact that we had the webinars recorded up front, so you could listen to them at your own pace, so that when the lecture begins, you're well prepared. You can ask the relevant questions and be able to get the content right. Then the lecturers were very, very interactive lecturers. Like I said, they were very experienced. Nothing ever beats experience. And the class composition was also very helpful. We had people who had experienced automation from ABB, from Siemens, so sharing in class was also very easy and very educative. So
Hello, are you there, Mildred? You seem to have dropped out. Just while I think Mildred might be trying to reconnect. I think what Mildred said, that final question, and was going to be one of my questions to her actually, but she'd covered it. She talked about her classmates. Now I think that many of us, when we study online, forget that as much as you are based remotely, you still do have your virtual classmates, and they can be extraordinarily useful in your lives because they, as she said, they are from industry too, particularly for those of you who are working and studying at the same time. So, as she said, very educative, being able to tap into and chat to her fellow classmates. Are you back there, Mildred?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry, my internet is a bit on and off.
No, your voice is so beautifully clear, and you've said some fabulous things and covered stuff that I was going to ask you anyway. So thank you so very much. All right, we're going on to the next thing. So also, I mean, still to do with the online experience, Mildred. Obviously, we wouldn't have been able to set up an engineering college if the technology hadn't allowed us to also run virtual and remote laboratories, because that's critical to education and engineering. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience, accessing those practicals so that they could support the theory that you'd been learning?
The remote labs to me gave me exactly what I needed, because what we learned in class, I felt through the simulations, and I didn't have the needs. I never felt at any one point the need to come to Australia to do the labs, because it was real simulation. And I keep telling people it's like an operator in control room trying to switch on generators that are thousands of miles or kilometers away. That's what the remote labs are. So once you understand the concept, when you go to the labs, it doesn't matter that it's remote labs. So that was my experience.
Thanks, Mildred. Can I just ask you a question, Mildred? Did you get assessed on the labs that you completed?
Yes, I was assessed on all my labs.
Okay, super. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide, Caroline. They're just examples of laboratories that hopefully are familiar to Mildred. Does that ring a bell to you, Mildred? They might have changed slightly since you were there.
Yes, it does.
It does. Okay, can go to the next one as well. Unless you want to talk around these, Mildred, but I'm not sure. How are we doing for time, Caroline? Yeah. All right, let's just go. There's another. It's just, I think these two slides are just to show people who are attending that there's the virtual example, and then obviously there in that bottom right-hand corner, you can see that you actually are interacting with real equipment, and I'm not technical, so if I say too much more here, I will just make myself sound silly. So I might ask Caroline to move to the next slide. All right. So what were your assessments like, Mildred? Did you ever get assessed in an invigilated environment in your master degree or not?
That came through at the thesis level, where we had to present the proposal and then the final presentation. That
Okay.
was my encounter for that.
Okay, and I'm really interested in your thesis. Did you find it difficult having your supervisor based remotely from you?
Not at all, because we met every other 2 weeks and the targets were very clear. She was always on time and kept all the appointment dates, and she had time to look through my work. Every time I made a submission, she took her time to read through it and be able to advise. And maybe I would highlight that the beauty with my thesis was a project I was actually working on at work. So it made the process a little bit easier and more relatable.
Oh, I was actually going to ask you that, Mildred. I'm so pleased, and I think our experience with students who are online and working in industry, that often their theses are so very relevant to what they're doing, and I think you've just confirmed that. And I'm pleased you were able to do something that was relevant and have you been able to use it in any way? Has it been useful to you since completing it?
Yes, ever since I finished this course, right now the contract instrumentation engineer at Naluval and Kira Power Station. And when I step into a room and I speak automation, everyone stops and listens. I don't know if that explains it.
Oh, That is absolutely lovely, Mildred. You've obviously become a bit of an expert in your own right, which is fantastic. So I think we just have one more slide. Can you go to the following? Thank you. There we go. And Mildred, I think you should just perhaps summarize what you've written there. Some beautiful comments from you, and you can have the last word here.
Okay, thank you, Edwina. So the learning experience was great. I got a fountain of knowledge, which I'm actually using at my workplace right now. It also helped me get registered as a professional engineer in Uganda. It was an addition. And I understand what I do from the theoretical point of view and to the practical side. So I'm being given more responsibilities in terms of automation at home. I'm mentoring people, and I got all this confidence from this course. I learned so much. It put everything into context for me. So it was a good choice, and it is something I'm very proud that I was able to accomplish. Thank you, Edwina.
Mildred, we are so very proud of you too, and thank you so much for speaking so beautifully. I'm sure you had everybody listening today as well. It certainly had me wrapped. Thank you so much, and we wish you everything of the best. We're pleased that you are a very vital member of our alumni, and I'm sure we will be in touch forever and ever. Thank you so much for your contribution tonight, Mildred.
Thank you too for the opportunity, and I look forward to continue working with you.
Thank you so much, Mildred and Edwina. That was wonderful. Just before we get into the question and answer, and I'll make sure that we spend about 10 minutes. I know we've run over time, so please, we will be sending out the recording after this. But just so that everyone is aware, we do hold our graduations around the world. Perth, Melbourne and Johannesburg is our 3 main areas. And obviously, depending on student numbers in other places, I'm sure there will be future locations that we'll be looking at. And then just to briefly mention, I know there's been quite a few scholarship questions. We do offer many future and current student scholarships. Unfortunately, they are available for our higher education programs. However, I hope that we will be looking at scholarships for the vocational space in the future as well. So I'll be sending this link out for anyone interested. And now onto the questions. So I'm just going to pull up, I think the main question we've been seeing is about the doctorate. So I'll let Steve maybe just give a brief overview, but we will definitely be organising a webinar focused purely on the doctorate. So Steve, can you give a brief overview of what's happening with that?
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. That's really appreciated. Thanks, Mildred. You were quite enthralling. Hopefully, once this virus and stuff are all sorted out, we'll get you over to Perth. You're very inspirational, and hopefully we can convince you to come over here and visit us. Just to quickly talk about fees and scholarships and things, if I can just jump in there quickly, Caroline. I just want to emphasize that these qualifications are all Australian accredited. And we do understand that students in different countries don't have the wherewithal, i.e. the money and the remuneration that they get in, say, New York or London or, Gaborone would have totally different levels of remuneration. So we do structure our fees so you get the same instructor, you get the same materials, get the same qualification, no matter where you're in the world, but you will pay different fees in different countries because we are trying to accommodate students that are poorer. That is really important. It is part of our mission. So please be assured that we are very conscious of fees. It is something which is very close to our heart, and we have to try and be as frugal as possible in what we do terms of fees. So that is really important. But if I can just quickly go on to the doctorate, we have had a lot of requests over many years, and our chair of our academic board, Professor Akhtar Kalam, who's also actually used to head up engineering at Victoria University in Melbourne, he put together a professional doctorate of engineering. Now, this doctorate is actually equivalent to a PhD, but the important thing is that it's actually practical and focused on industry projects. So we're not just saying, hey, go and do a PhD and come back in 4 or 5 years' time. We're actually going to travel with you on your journey every week, working with you in your doctorate program. So that is really important to understand. So it's not just, hey, get lost, talk to a supervisor, because when I did my PhD, one of the most disconcerting things I found, which contributed to a high dropout rate, was the total disinterest in a lot of supervisors. I was very lucky. I had a supervisor that was working with me for 3 years every week. Can you believe it? An amazing man. But a lot of PhDs don't work that way. So our professional doctorate is designed to focus on industry projects. So it's applied research. It's not blue sky stuff. It's applied research which will make an impact on industry. And we work with you. So we have a lot of courses, as you'll see in the document, a lot of courses to help you do the research, and then you actually engage in an industry project, and then we work with you. And hopefully, industry project will help you improve your job prospects as well. So that is really important. So a lot of blue sky PhDs come out and they can't get a job because the stuff they've done is really interesting. And I might confess, I have a sneaky admiration for those guys, but it's really hard to get a job because they're not connected with industry. So that is really important. So I think that gives you a bit of background to the doctorate. We are launching it from the beginning of next year. We would prefer you to have a master's degree before entering the doctorate. But again, if you've got a good bachelor's degree with lots of experience, then we will consider you in the doctoral program.
Thanks so much, Steve. I just want to get through a few more questions before we finish off. A question that's come up was Simran had a question, and a few others have asked a question relating to that. The question was, as a beginner in the field of instrumentation and control, how can I leverage my time during the course and connect with industry? Are there any joint ventures of EIT with industries that can help students gain employment? So I guess basically all about EIT's connections to industry. And yeah, over to you, Steve. Steve has just dropped out. Apologies for the internet. So I'm just going to answer a few of these questions. Unfortunately, I'm not an engineer, but I can answer some questions about the fees. So I can see Mumdu asking about, can you pay 6 months rather than paying monthly instalments? Completely depends what program you're referring to. Our higher education on campus program students pay per semester, but for our higher education online programs, I believe students can pay upfront if they want. Let's see, and just I'm just going to put this slide here. If anyone's got any questions that want to be sent directly to myself, you can please feel free to reach out to me, caroline.mackay@eit.edu.au. And I'm just going to pass back over to Steve to answer the question about what is EIT doing with industry, and how can students start connecting with industry when they start studying with us, be it a professional certificate all the way through to a master and a doctorate.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, that's a very awkward question, if I may be honest. Certainly, the question is, how do you connect with industry when you're doing any of our programs? I would say, interesting enough, if you look at the profile of our students, if you say we've got 2,000 students, probably a few hundred of those are on campus. The rest of the students are all working in industry. So it's quite likely if you're doing one of our online programs, not on campus, I must emphasize that, if you're doing one of our online programs, you will be interacting with a large number of people working in industry around the world. So that is probably the best way to network. And we do have an unfair advantage, I must say, because we were talking about this yesterday. Someone said, well, how many of your students get a job when they finish the program? Well, most of our students are actually working in good jobs, and they're looking to improve their job by doing one of our programs. So you would hopefully be connecting in a group which are other people studying, and that's probably the best way to connect. I think that should answer that question, Caroline. Sure.
Thanks, Dave. That's brilliant. And thank you so much, Elise, for jumping in there as well. Another question that has popped up is about the job industry in industrial automation. What would you say would be the job trends of the 5 to 10 years' time?
Look, I'm not a guru in terms of making a confident prediction on anything. And every day that I see passing, you see changes occurring in industry. But I would say to you that I've watched over the last 30 years that I can clearly, and you can clearly see it, and you only need to look at any newspaper every day, that automation is growing. Initially, automation was robots in a factory or automating a process, but it's actually spread even into, buying a ticket at a terminal, or, everywhere you can see automation. So as long as you are, should we say, open-ended about your career in automation, you won't find a problem. So for example, by that I mean, if you're a process engineer working on a plant dealing with, say, iron ore, you should think of automation not just for that iron ore plant, but you should also think about it for a supermarket. How can I automate the supermarket so I have a robot plopping cans and beans onto the table or onto a shelf and taking them off? So automation spreads everywhere. So as long as you are, shall we say, open-ended, open-minded about where you work and what you would automate, you're fine. You only need to look around outside. You can see automation going everywhere. It is a challenge for someone who's unskilled, though. They will be losing their jobs, and there are problems there. So that's something we've got to really think about as well, because it will damage society, and if we don't pick those people up and skill them up. But I'm confident that you will see a lot of automation, and it will stretch into all the other industries as well. So even if you're a civil engineer, you're using automation in your processes. Thanks very much, Caroline.
Thanks. And just a couple last questions. We've had a question from Edson. If I apply to advanced diploma and finish it, how many subject lecture I have to do to get the master degree, and how much will it cost? Edson, I'm actually going to reach out to you directly tomorrow, and I'll make sure that we've got one of our course advisors contacting you directly. Just one last question. We've had a question pop up a few times. If a student has started or has already completed a master degree, is now trying to complete our EIT master degree, but they would like to instead go straight to the PhD, would that be possible?
That's a good question, actually. You've got me on the spot there, guys. Look, funny enough, our accrediting agency said to us that because when we get our programs accredited, they get accredited by the Australian government. So they are far better than any university degree, because they're actually accredited for the whole of Australia and by the highest body in the land, which is the Australian government, they actually indicated to us that we needed to put more credit in for master degrees. So there's some credits we have to give for master degrees in the doctorate. So if you've already commenced the master degree, or you've with us or anyone else, we can possibly give you some credit for some of those units in the master degree within the doctorate. So the trick is every person has their own specific requirements, own specific circumstances. Everyone with us is unique. So what you should do is take your question up and talk to our Deputy Dean, Miss Indumati V, and she will give you a recommendation, some counseling, and just talk to her. I see there's a question there from Sukyit as well about machine learning. We do have a certificate in machine learning. We don't have a diploma at this stage. It's probably something which is close to my heart, because machine learning is one of the areas which I'm spending a lot of time over the last 2 years. So, and we've got some gurus in machine learning, particularly one of our lecturers, Dr. Heidi Harb, who's a guru on it. He does programs all over the world for machine learning. Anyway, so we will look at that. Thanks for that, Sugit. Mr. Singh.
And that is the end of our webinar. I apologise because we've gone over quite a lot, but there's been an incredible amount of questions. So I'm going to be going through all of these questions tomorrow, and we'll be sending out the recording along with the presentation slides early next week. If you've got any questions at all, please feel free to email me directly on that email address, which is up on the screen. And we hopefully we'll meet you face-to-face at graduation, or if you end up on campus to Australia. We look forward to helping you on your education journey. And thanks again for all attending, and have a wonderful day or evening, depending on where you're located in the world. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Caroline. And I wish I had a bowl of flowers to give you. Thanks, Caroline. And obviously, thanks, Mildred, for a beautiful presentation. I'm sorry I dropped out at the end. I was on a very shaky wireless connection, always trying to stretch it. And St. Helena Island, I must tell you now, Wiseman, my Edwina has just finished reading a book about Napoleon and St. Helena Island, and about the Australian connection. The family were working for Napoleon, and they ended up in Sydney. So it's interesting. I don't know if you read the book. You should contact Edwina. She'll give you the details of the book. Fascinating, about Napoleon, who was banned there by the British during the Napoleonic Wars. But thank you very, very much, everyone, for joining. And I'm very grateful for you listening in. And thank you, Caroline and Edwina and Mildred. I'm